Okay. Now, I think that makes sense. I think today's kind of discussion that I wanted to touch on,
Yeah.
and it's just what's happening. There's a management exodus going
Yes,
around,
there.
man. Like, huh? Are they going to the promised land? What's
Yeah,
happening? Huh?
there is, and I think when I was thinking about this a little bit this morning, I was, guys, we're not being harsh. These things happen, and these people they don't leave empty-handed,
Yeah.
so they'll be fine. So we will be speaking about them. Don't worry, the names that we do mention, we'll also put a picture here, so you can show, so we can show you their faces and some of the different price movements that we've actually observed as a result of their movement, because that happens.
Yeah. A lot.
The
A
market
lot.
moves whenever key people move. The market also moves. But yeah, let's get straight into it.
Let's get straight into it. I think the very first one that I want to touch on
Yeah.
is it's Pick and Pay, man. Like,
Let's go straight into it.
what's actually happening there, man?
Pick and
Like,
Pay, yeah. So with Pick and Pay, just some context, Mr. Peter Boone was let go. It's always under mutual agreement. Yes, for those who are listening, yeah, they can't see the.
welcome to the Investment Candle Podcast, episode 8.
8.
We are in a little bit of a different setup today. As you can see, we just wanted something that is a little bit relaxed.
Yeah.
I'm here wearing my Crocs, and I didn't know that we're actually going to have a different setup. So, but again, I'm not rolling alone. Nico, how are
man.
you, brother?
I'm good, man. It's been a minute, but always glad to meet up and to chat markets.
Yeah.
Like I was saying, it's a good way to actually cool off. Surprisingly, we do this thing to cool off.
Yeah.
But all good, man.
Yeah. I mean, I think I was saying to you before we started recording that
Yeah,
it actually feels good to be back behind the mic.
it does. It
I
feels.
feel like I
awesome.
really missed it, man. Like a
Feels
lot,
awesome.
a lot has happened ever since we recorded episode 7. Eh?
A lot.
I mean, we're gonna get into a lot of what happened, but what's happening with football, man? I know I don't want to talk about football.
Yeah, like on the sports side, I support Arsenal.
Yeah,
In
you're
the English
eating
Premier League.
nicely now, eh?
I'm okay. I wouldn't say eating nicely, but I'm okay. And then on the local front, I enjoy watching Sundowns play. So there, I've never had any issues there, except for the CAF Champions League.
Okay.
But what has grabbed my attention has been the rugby.
The rugby.
Yeah, no, the Springboks are doing well, man.
Yeah.
It feels good because like when everything is going bad in the country,
At least we've got the
hey, we've
Springboks.
got rugby. So yeah. What's been keeping you outside of work and this? Yeah.
I think I did a couple of travels.
Yeah.
Then I went to Mozambique with the Gents.
Cool.
It was quite nice, but I mean, I think what really touched me is the level of poverty that is there.
Yes.
Like it's quite it's quite deep. You know.
Did you go past Maputo? Did you go to?
Yes, we
Praia?
went into this place. I can't remember the name.
Did you go past Shai Shai?
Yes.
Further.
Yeah, further. So
Okay.
those areas where they actually, because one of the women that we're chatting to, and they speak Tonga, of course.
Yes, they do with the mixture of Portuguese.
Yeah.
Yes.
So one of the things that the woman was saying was that they still live in a mud house.
Yeah.
And they get affected by rains. During rainfall, they just have to find a little corner and actually, until such time that the rainfall has passed. And, it just really touched me, man.
did.
Like, I'm
It
just
did.
like, there's really people that are struggling much more than what we're struggling in South Africa. And because what I've seen is that they don't even have those social security safety nets, like
don't.
grants and all of those things. So, it's actually quite a raw and deep level of poverty.
I've been to Mozambique. I'm not as well traveled as you are.
Ah.
I don't think anyone is. But
Come on.
no, but like I've been to Mozambique, and what you're saying is quite right. So after I go there, I always do like an economic analysis
Yeah.
as to what's happening. Mozambique is one of the poorest countries in the world by GDP per capita.
Yes.
And it's sad seeing. Well, okay, there's a positive and there's a negative. There's a positive in the sense that if you travel as a South African, which I'm hoping most South Africans do, you gain perspective.
Yes.
Something that you wouldn't have gotten otherwise.
You increase your level of gratitude of
An
what you actually
appreciation
have.
of what you have.
Like you're just like, yo.
But it is sad, and the flip side of that, it is so sad seeing abject poverty, and you're seeing that it's like bad. But if you go to other African countries, it can get worse. I take it as a reminder that as bad as our situation is economically, it can get worse.
Yeah,
and
it
if we
is.
don't really watch out, it can really get to a point where things are not happening.
I think one of the things that kind of exacerbate the level of poverty is that their literacy rate is 31%.
Is it?
Yeah, so you can imagine 31% of the population
Can read and write.
can read and write basically.
Yeah.
If that we're going that with the measure as a measure,
Yeah.
then you can't even export the skills. For
My
instance,
God.
it's a little bit different with Zimbabwe because they've got a high
High
literacy
literacy
rate.
rate, yes.
So if a Zimbabwean is going to come to South Africa,
goodness
they can be a
gracious.
teacher, they can be all those things because they are skilled, right? They're educated and all those things. So Mozambican, when they come to South Africa for greener pastures, it's slightly difficult. They have to work a little bit harder because the skill set, it's not there.
Yeah.
So it becomes a bit of a tough situation.
Without dwelling too much on Mozambique, because when I was there, I looked at the economy. As much as how I did enjoy being there, but I looked at the economy, and there was a couple of risks of which come out at you, and I think there's a lot of how can I say, commodity dependency.
Yeah.
With the oil and gas, particularly in the northern side of
Mozambique.
with Mozambique, but the Cabo Delgado area, which is rife with extremism and terrorism.
Yes, that's one of the things that actually has impacted the country.
It's incredible, and that is something that they must seriously pay attention to. But I think there's something that you can do also in the short to medium term. I think which you can actually move around a bit of the national key points. They're all concentrated too much in Maputo. I would like a little bit them to spread out so that some sort of economic investment can actually flow out of Maputo. So there's a bit of concentration risk there. But mate, that's just my little bit on Mozambique.
No. I think I feel you.
Yeah.
A lot has happened. Our
Yes.
portfolio is looking very bloody at the moment. I think it would be good to kind of delve into what's happening since then and just to discuss a little bit. So I'll hand over to you.
Let's do this thing.
Doesn't seem like there's a clear cut in terms of who's leading. So
No, there isn't.
at least you can't gloat.
I can't gloat. I can't gloat. But yeah. Thanks, mate. Thank you so much once again for the support on the portfolio check. Feedback has been good. Some very nice testimonials.
Yeah.
So we have Anglo Platinum. That's GVUs. We've got Anglo Platinum still in the red with negative 18.41%, minus 18.41%. That's Anglo Platinum. Yes. Like, don't feel bad, mate. In my personal investments, I have Sibanye Stillwater. So similar. Same.
I actually do have Anglo Plat in my personal
Is it?
investment as well. Yeah. So
Fantastic.
I'm taking a hit both ways.
personally as well. And then we have Naspers, of which we're going to appear on our next segment,
Okay.
which we get into it, which you will introduce. Naspers with minus 9.12%.
Okay.
Yeah, some interesting stuff has been happening
At Naspers.
at the Big Media 24 building in Foreshore, Cape Town. Then we have Sasol, which is a tricky one. I'm starting to regret Sasol, but I guess that's the lesson. You regret impulsive decisions. At minus 7.67%.
But I mean, if you compare Sasol and Anglo Plat on a
Different businesses though.
different businesses, but I mean on a performance pure share price movement.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm still my growth is way worse than what Sasol is at, right? Because mine is minus 18% at the moment, and your Sasol is minus 7%. I mean, it could be worse. That's what
Let's just move on.
that's what I'm saying. It could be worse.
It could be worse. I think that's becoming the theme. It could be worse. Discovery. I know they came out with their earnings recently in the past 2 weeks or
which were
so.
good numbers, you know.
Great numbers, and it did recover a little bit, but not too much.
Mm.
Minus 6.83%.
Mm.
Um, yes, and then we have British and American tobacco.
Mm.
Surprisingly, has been quite resistant,
Mm.
resilient, not
Mm.
resistance, resilient.
Mm.
With minus 4.37%.
Yeah.
And then we get to the greens.
Mm.
We have Shoprite Holdings at plus 5.42%.
Mm-hmm.
Cool, positive. And
Mm.
then we've got the star of the show, which is Capitec.
Of course.
Yeah, no, this Capitec has proven to be quite resilient,
Mm.
to be honest,
Mm.
with the gain of 14.24%.
Mm.
But that's where we are at the moment. Overall, our portfolio, we are in the red.
Mm.
But bear in mind, guys, this is two people who have come with their own personal investment ideas, and we've put it together. We haven't clubbed, we haven't come up with a meeting and saying that this is going to be the strategy. So obviously, like, if we have done that, it would have been much better. But this is
Yeah.
this is something interactive of which we wanted to get you involved.
Mm.
Mate, what do you make of the portfolio check?
No, I mean, look, I think one, globally, we're just seeing pressures in the different economies,
Yeah.
right? I think times are tough right now. There's a lot that is going on in the different markets.
Yes.
More especially because Anglo-Plat, for example, came out to say that they are kickstarting negotiations to cut some jobs,
Yes.
right? And that means that, you know, it's when mining companies start that conversation, it's actually an indicator that, you know, the economy is doing very bad. You know,
Yes.
so that's one of the elements, and that's precisely driven by the slow down or decrease in the prices of
Of the commodities.
commodities, right? More especially
Yeah.
applicable to a platinum group.
PGMs. Yeah.
So that's what we're seeing. And the CEO even came out to say he's positioning the business in a manner that he's actually counting for the low pricing to be present for a very long time, right?
Yeah.
So you can see that, you know, they're trying to kind of manage that risk with the assumption of the worst possible scenario, which for me that sounds like a good defense.
That's how you do it.
Yeah, that sounds like a very good defense, but unfortunately the economy is like that. And like I said, I did iterate some of the issues that are happening in South Africa that are in South African context specific. And also obviously we've seen a slowdown in Chinese economy, and being the biggest buyer of all these elements, then it becomes, you know, there's no much demand that is on the market, and exacerbated by the low pricing, softening of the pricing, then it becomes a big issue for the business, right? So that's what we're seeing at the moment in the PGM space, that they're not actually getting that big revenue that they're actually used to. And of course, they take a beating from the market because
take
the
a
market is
smash,
just
yeah.
like, okay, how long is this gonna be? Where are we? Do we actually value this thing? You know. So that's what we're seeing in the market like that. I mean, Discovery came out with very good numbers,
Yes.
right? And to be honest, I don't know why the share price is taking a beating, but like I said, there's actually a general slowdown in the global economy, more especially in the South African economy as well. So that also, a company can't perform much more than the South African economy.
Yeah. That's the
right?
ceiling.
Yeah, like you
it's a
can't,
ceiling,
you can in the short term, but you can't
Over
do
the
that
long term,
over the
no.
long term, right? So that's what we're seeing. There's a lot of pressure in the South African economy market, and Discovery did say that because we're in a high interest zone, right? That's affecting the business, right? Because this is an insurer, right? If you can afford something, the first thing you're gonna cut is insurance, right? Like,
You're right, yeah.
if my cost of living increase, I'm gonna think twice about that life insurance,
That
that health insurance, that what. I'm gonna think twice, right? I'm like, okay, where do I cut my costs?
Yeah.
You know, so that's what they've been seeing in terms of receiving the pressure from what's happening in the economy. So,
The bank,
um,
the Discovery Bank.
the Discovery
Any thoughts
Bank, yeah, they've seen some very good growth. I mean, the numbers kind of indicate that they're pretty much close to break even point. So it seems like the growth is healthy. But like I said, there's a lot of what's going on in the economy, and we should not expect 15 to 20% growth on those numbers, right? More especially in the short term. But I'm still very much bullish about those companies. I'm still very much bullish about Anglo Plat. Still very much bullish about Discovery. And we should see even BET. I mean,
Even bet.
BET is facing a transition in this industry specific thing where people are where all the companies are trying to navigate around the regulatory environment that is changing to kind of care for the environment, etc. I think we did discuss this
We
in
discussed it
detail.
in detail, yeah.
In terms of them changing the product system to kind of suit that regulatory changes. So I mean, there's a lot that is going on in the economy, and again, in terms of the share price, it's a supply and demand thing, right? So it's people's sentiments.
Yes, it
So
is.
people's thoughts are reflected on the share price of the business, right? Whether or not people feel bullish, it's reflected on the share price. So that's what we're seeing. People are feeling a little bit, bearish about what's going to happen in the economy. That's a long and short.
like I don't know, just to compress, especially the last bit that you said, with the famous words of Warren Buffett, in that the stock market it's a popularity contest.
Yes.
Contest over the short term, and then it's a weighing machine over the long term. So if a business continues to dole out great numbers, robust numbers, prove its resiliency, even in the face of uncertainty in today's economy, that's what you want. And over the long term, those are the companies that actually stand out, because I mean, investment cycles and economic cycles,
Exactly.
up and down, up and down, up and down. They haven't been going any other direction since these things were made up.
Yeah.
But like companies that actually continue, and I think that's what I like about our portfolio, in that the underlying companies that we have, I don't think they were moved, well, except for maybe my impulsive Sasso, but like notwithstanding that, we've got good fundamental companies.
Yes.
That have got good boards in place, that have got good management, of which we're going to touch on, and that have actually released good numbers. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I think that makes sense. I think today's kind of discussion that I wanted to touch on, and it's just what's happening. There's a management exodus going around.
Yes, there.
Man. Like, are they going to the promised land? What's happening?
There is, and I think when I was thinking about this a little bit this morning, guys, we're not being harsh. These things happen, and these people, they don't leave empty-handed.
Yeah.
So they'll be fine. So we will be speaking about them. Don't worry, the names that we do mention, we'll also put a picture here, so you can show, so we can show you their faces and some of the different price movements that we've actually observed as a result of their movement, because that happens.
Yeah, a lot.
The market moves whenever key people move. The market also moves. But yeah, let's get straight into it.
Let's get straight into it. I think the very first one that I want to touch on is it's Pick and Pay, man. Like,
let's go straight into it.
What's actually happening there, man? Like,
Pick and Pay, yeah. So with Pick and Pay, just for some context, Mr. Peter Boone was let go. It's always under mutual agreement. Yes, for those who are listening, they can't see the apostrophes. But yeah, it's Peter Boone is gone, and Mr. Sean Summers.
Yes.
Mr. Sean Summers has come back in, and something interesting about Mr. Sean Summers is that it's not the first time that he's chief executive of Pick and Pay.
Yeah.
He was previously a chief executive of Pick and Pay, and he left in 2007. And now he is back, trying to right the ship. Yeah, mate. So that's the first one. Any thoughts on Mr. Peter Boone's?
Look, I think we did discuss this offline.
We did.
my concern is, I don't know if, because Summers people are saying he was very successful at the time that he was chief executive.
Yeah.
ShopRite and Pick and Pay were not too different.
Yeah.
If anything, Pick and Pay had larger revenue than Shoprite.
Shoprite, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yes, in terms of margins, Shoprite was still leading, but it looked like they were very much at par, and we wouldn't see them having this big gap. I mean, even from the valuation perspective, I mean, Shoprite is like almost double the size of.
I'll show
Of-
you.
of-
I'll put the picture here. Of just to back up with what you're saying, in that by the time he left, there was very little
difference between the two
difference
companies.
between the two, and now
It's a whole astronomical
it's-
difference,
it's
right?
a gulf.
But
It's a
that's what
gulf.
I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, you calling someone that has passed the retirement age
Yeah.
to come back as a CEO, but
Yes.
this guy was a CEO 10, 15 years ago, but we don't know what worked then if it's going to work now.
Very true.
I mean, there's a lot. The market has shifted so much, right? Retailing, yes, for me, it's still the detail.
Yes.
But do the market fundamentals that worked back then in 2007 are still the same? I mean, an average customer, right? Is the average customer does the average customer behave the same like the customer behaved then? Such that, I don't know where Simmons was. Was he called out of retirement? Like,
He was at he did some time in Steinhoff. So he had a management role, but that still had to do with retail. I think it was retailing couches. I forget the name of the business in particular. Mattress,
Okay.
the mattress company. He headed that. So yeah, he's back now. He's not like youthy, if I should say. He's very seasoned. But like we spoke about it in the other episode about where you said Pick and Pay should improve, and you said that it's the bread and butter, it's the mass market, it's where, and I think if I take that into consideration, I see the vision of actually bringing someone like that. If that is where you see that things are getting broken, getting a person that actually focuses on that and specializes in that, I don't think it's a bad thing. We spoke offline that I don't think he's here to improve the omnichannel, the digital platform. He's
definitely
not.
not.
He's definitely. I don't see it. If that happens as a result, great for Pick and Pay, great for Pick and Pay shareholders. But I think he's there for the meat and potatoes, for the pap and beef stew of Pick and Pay, and that is basically reclaiming the throne of being South Africa's preferred mass market retailer.
Which was, but I mean, we will see. We must give him a chance.
No,
to
he has
see.
to. He has to get a chance. He has to get a
We
chance.
must give him a chance
Yeah.
to see. I mean, maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, experience does drive insight, right? I
Yes.
mean, you might find that he kind of understands the market growth and the changes that have happened since he was not in the game.
Yes.
So we're gonna have to give him a chance, but I don't know if that's a wise idea from Pick and Pay perspective.
reckon?
Yeah, I'm not like that's
Not convinced.
that's I'm not convinced that someone that old
Ageism.
it's not really ageism. Maybe it is, but but I'm really not convinced that he's gonna have the stamina to actually drive this thing, right? That's just my concern.
No, I
right?
hear you. I hear
That-
you, mate. I hear
that
you.
he's got a wealth of experience. There's no
Yes.
doubt about that,
Yes.
right? He's got wealth of experience to actually be a great leader, and most likely probably pinpoint exactly where the problem
Where the
lies,
issues are,
where the
yeah.
issues are. But for me, I'd give it a 60-40, man.
Yo.
For me, I'd give
Yeah.
it a 60-40. But I think also it will depend on the support that he has.
I think it does, mate. Like as long as if you have the support of the Ackerman family, that's the support that you really need. And it seems like from the statements that came out from the Ackerman family, led by Gareth Ackerman, it seems like he has their full support, and obviously because he had a previous relationship with the late great Raymond Ackerman as well. That's a bit of capital that you have than saying that, look, this person actually trusted me. And
Yeah, because I mean, what I'm saying, the support. I get the Ackerman family most likely
Yes.
prefer him because he grew their business very big from
Sure.
1997 or 95 up until 2007 or 8.
Sure.
But what I'm talking about is probably the boardroom right now, it's probably divided because I don't think Mr. Boone left on good terms.
I also don't think so. It was too soon. It was too soon.
Because this thing was an immediate thing,
It
right?
was immediate, yeah.
Like always, there's probably issues when someone says they resign with immediate effect.
There's something wrong.
More especially if it's a CEO.
Yeah.
Usually, if it's a good transition,
Yeah.
be like, okay, this guy is going to step out in 6 months, 8 months time, and all of that. That's probably a good transition.
We're gonna get to that. That's first round. We're gonna get to that one. We're gonna get to that. Yeah.
We're gonna get to a first round.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying, that if he gets the support of the board, right, and they really buy into the vision of what he's trying to do,
Sure.
then that's when we're going to see probably the good fruits and the good turnaround that is going to happen at Pick and Pay, right? I did say that it's a very difficult thing to turn around a retailer. It's very difficult because once you lose that grip, right,
hard to get it back.
It's hard to get it back.
Yeah.
It's very hard to get it back. And look, they've pointed out some issues that they've had, like they've had a loss due to a SAP implementation.
Yes.
Because they wanted to start by implementing it, their distribution in KZN.
Yes.
But look, SAP implementations are very difficult. We've seen with other retailers as well,
They've
right?
also
Because
managed to bungle that as well.
you're gonna definitely mess around your supply chain and all of that. That's gonna happen, right? We've seen with ShopRite, ultimately they ended up fixing the issues.
Yes.
We've seen with Pick and Pay. We've seen with Spa and all of those things. That happens, right? I'm not too worried about that because for me it's expected. Even when I think I had a meeting with them not so long ago, and then they spoke about the SAP implementation, how it's going to help with data and all of that.
Yes.
I'm just like, in my head, it was just like, you're gonna run into issues.
Sure. But like as you said, it was definitely expected. The market absolutely had no mercy on them. When they announced the management change, the CEO change, as well as the loss that's coming, man, the share price tanked. Share price went,
Took a beating, a proper beating.
It took a beating, brother. It was more than 10% on the day. It went down.
Because they knew then it means that they don't believe that the CEO can solve the issues that they have now.
It's true. It's true. But like as we said, it's supply and demand. It's expected.
Yes, a supply and demand. But you know, it becomes, if that supply and demand can be linked to a fundamental issue into a business.
Yes.
Being that they don't believe that the former CEO could fix the issues.
Yeah.
Then, you know, it is what it is. But anyway,
let's see what happens. Let's see what happens. So okay, Pick and Pay was not the only one with a radical management shift. There was also one company which is in our portfolio, and that is Naspers.
Yes.
Naspers, again, it was some people say that it was expected, but man, that CEO has been there for 10 years.
Yes.
But anyway, let's get straight into it. So Naspers got rid of the chief executive of Naspers, the controlling group, as well as Process, which is the subsidiary. And that was Mr. Bob Van Dijk. And I have personal feelings towards this.
Did you have confidence in the CEO?
Now I can say it, and the answer to that is not so much.
Not so much.
Yeah. I'm gonna get to the not so much, but let me just finish laying down the
facts.
The facts. So he was let go. He was hired by a legend, Mr. Koos Becker, an absolute legend, the person that basically built the modern day Naspers. So he comes from eBay, and then in 2014 he was brought in, first non-South African to run this company in its history, first non-South African, and he was there for 10 years, and he oversaw the unbundling of many companies due to the consolidation discount.
Yeah.
And also the split of Naspers and Process and the listing in the Euronext stock exchange.
Yeah.
Hey, mate. Like, so the thing, and this is where we get to the worrying part. And I'm speaking as in my capacity as a shareholder. I've been a shareholder for Naspers for a few years.
Yeah.
If he just sat down on a chair and did nothing, because of the investment in Tencent, the current share price of Naspers lost out on a possible 40% of value. because of this movement or musical chairs of moving businesses there, splitting this, going, making that list go over there.
Yeah.
He did too much. Over 10 years. And I promise you, like, this was a case of just holding, just keeping a tight ship. And not trying to stretch and to pull. And it sucks, man. And I'm sure I'm not the only shareholder. I'm quite emotional about this, which is not nice. But I'm not the only shareholder that feels this way. Because we saw literally value being lost. Potential value being lost.
Destroyed.
And it was a case of us, the management. It turned its shape. It didn't really look like it was. I mean, I mustn't get very nationalistic about this, but yeah, there were issues, mate, and
No, I hear you. I
yeah,
hear
and I think that point for me, that's the point I'm trying to drive home, in that there was a lot that was done for nothing. In fact, the potential value which I speak about, it was purely based on the 10 cent. The 10 cent investment.
Yeah.
We saw it actually going down, so they were selling off a little bit of it to have cash so that they can buy back their own shares. Doing too much again. So that was my issue. But he's gone, and Mr. Evan too, he did time at Goldman Sachs and also from SoftBank
Okay.
as well. He was the MD there. Apparently, he's a very strict character.
Yeah.
So he replaced him, and that is the movement in Naspers. That's the change in management of Naspers. Yeah.
Okay. Very interesting. I can see you're very passionate about Naspers.
I've been holding this share for a long time, bro.
I can tell the passion, eh?
I've been holding this share for a long time. I've seen some good things on it.
Yeah.
Some very, very good things on it. It helps that I'm South African as well. So there is a little bit of an emotional tie. And then when I saw stuff changing, for the sake of changing, I started asking myself, what is this? There's been many shareholder open letters. Some of them are quite scathing. I'm not there. I'm not there. But we just, I think Naspers was actually punching below its weight, and underperforming relative to where I think it should be performing. Yeah. So
And
that's
then-
Naspers. Yeah.
And then the next one is First Rand.
First round.
Yeah.
So first round we have Mr. Pullinger, not leaving immediately. But
Yeah,
but
which
that-
is
yeah.
usually a good thing when someone says, I'm going to step down in the next 12 months, right?
Yeah.
It's typically a good thing. It means that, there's a good transition, probably not a bad boardroom
Yes.
politics. There's probably just, I want to take time off, or it's time that
It's
I'm
time.
on, and all those things. So,
Apparently he gave himself 6 years. And after that 6 years was up, he was like, okay, guys, now it's time.
yeah. So you see, I think that's a good thing. I think one of the most notable thing is that it's going to be run by a black woman.
What is her name? What is her name? Tell us, who is this person that's going to be replacing Ellen Pullinger?
I forgot her first name,
Mary.
but they have Mary Villagazi.
Yeah, Mary Villegas.
Yes. So I know, and she was the COO, hey, of
She was
of
the chief
bank.
operating officer of First Round, yeah.
Yeah, so for me, it's a good card to play for transformation,
Exactly.
right? I mean, she's not the first female to run a bank.
Yes.
There was Mary something as well, actually.
I'm trying to think. Who,
She was at APSA.
you mean Maria Ramos?
Yes, Mary Ramos.
Yes.
She was at APSA. She was the first female to actually
Yes, to run a bank.
one of the big four, now the big
Big
five,
five,
probably. A bank. So it's a good thing, right, that we see a female of color trying to
black woman.
being
Yeah.
appointed to run a bank.
Yeah.
But even so, I mean, even at the bank at First Rand, we're seeing actually a lot of movement in the bank,
Yeah.
right? It was not just the CEO that is actually leaving; even the chairman resigned as well.
Yeah.
So there's a lot that is going on. in that
I
bank.
like it. I like it. I'm just maybe not super vocal because maybe I have my shareholder cap on a bit too tight. I should loosen its grip, but I won't do that. And this is something which I tell everybody that we debate about these things. Like the proof of the pudding is in the eating. Great, it's fantastic. The transition has been smooth. It's been very different to Naspers and very different to Pick and Pay. Great start. man, she has a lot of work on her hands.
She does.
And I think with the shareholders, as much as how they can actually celebrate that this is a win for transformation, this is a win for diversity, it's a win for women, she must do a good job. And she must maximize shareholder return. That is the thing. We will judge her based on that. And I think she would not have it any other way.
But I think also one of the things that I was discussing with some of my colleagues was, look, it's going to be a very interesting thing because the boardroom is still white and pale. You know, it's still white people in the boardroom, right? More especially the management side. There's still a lot of white people. So, you know, as long as she gets the support from the board and the other executive members, then yes, we can merit and judge her on that merit that, you know, you just were not doing well. But
Fair enough.
I worry that there's a risk that she may not get the support because, you know,
where would your worry be, if I may ask?
my worry is that the room is still a white boys.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
So will she get the support that she needs
to
actually lead and push her visions for the bank? That's my thing.
I think, mate, you mentioned it in the beginning in that haphazard starts, especially when it comes to change in high level management, it's never a good start. I remember KPMG. Sorry, I mentioned names, but I remember KPMG. They brought in, I forget who was the name. I forget the name of the
female.
Of
I was
lady.
actually working at KPMG at the time.
You were working at KPMG at the time.
Yeah.
But you see, the thing is that it didn't really end off well because it didn't start off well. And I like this because this has a good start. And it has set the tone, meaning that there was a proper succession plan which was approved by the board. There was a nomination committee who went about its work and actually nominated the person, of which the board ratified that decision. I like that stuff because that tells me that already you're on board, unless if we're missing something. But so far, I think it's a good thing. The market reacted well to it. Well, not necessarily well, but it didn't react badly to it. And I think that's a good thing. And what I'm trying to say is that good start. So far, I'm okay. If it was not a good start, that's when maybe I would understand.
When it's messy.
When it's messy, thank you. Yeah, you articulated it quite well. When it's messy, that's when I would.
When it's messy, that's when you know, like, they need someone to transition.
Exactly.
To stabilize things before they get their person. But
even when it comes to that, whenever things happen quickly, they're looking for a fall person. Like this person here now is inheriting something which was doomed to fail, and now they just wanted a person giving this failed situation a face, and that would be terribly unfair. But this is not the case. First Rand is in a good place at the moment.
That's in a good place. I mean, there's a lot of good stuff that is going into the bank, but mate, someone is probably sitting here and thinking, what is the point of how significant are management movements? Like, how does that affect my investments? Why should I care? That's probably the question that someone has in mind. Why should I care that the CEO has been replaced, the COO, CFO, whatever? Why should I care about this thing?
It's very, very important because at the end of the day, these organizations, okay, number one, you are investing in these companies. So you should care because it is your money. That's the first things first. You should care. Whatever happens, whenever you invest in any investment vehicle, whatever happens to that vehicle. In fact, let me go with that analogy. Whatever happens to that vehicle, you should care because your wealth is tied up in that vehicle.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the first things first. The second thing is that you need to care who's driving that vehicle because that person is the chief executive. Okay, so that person who is driving that vehicle is the chief executive, as to be pushing the agenda as to where the company is going to be going or where the vehicle is going to be going, with the support of her board in this instance or their board. They're the ones that are going to be making the decision. The buck stops with them. So it's a simple one. It's not even a very, very difficult one. You should care because this person is driving your investment vehicle. The person who is going to be the face of whether it's a good decision or whether it's a bad decision, that is the chief executive. The person who is going to take ultimate accountability, that is the chief executive. So you should care. And we missed one, just to go back a little bit, was just Transnet. That was another.
Yeah, I wanted us to talk about it because that's a state owned, right?
It's a
So,
different
it's a
dynamic.
different
No,
dynamic.
you're right. You're
Um,
right. You're right.
yeah.
But yeah, I think to answer your question as succinctly as put, you should care because it's your money and it's the person that's going to be driving your investment vehicle.
Yeah.
That is the chief executive. And
Yeah.
it affects your share price. It will definitely affect your share price as well.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. I think management movements, it's quite a key point, right? Like you said, you did say before that the CEO is a key man, right,
Yeah.
in the business.
Yeah.
For example, because he's going to sign off on big expansion things and come up with the vision for the bank or vision for the
company,
business
yeah.
as a whole. And so it becomes a very critical point because that person is a steward of your money. It's the steward of your capital,
Yep.
right? What they do with that money can hurt or grow the company,
100%.
right? That is like the key thing, right? Who's going to manage my money? Do I have confidence in this person that is going to manage my money? So that is quite a key point. But nonetheless, we can move to Transnet, man. There's a lot that is going on in Transnet. I mean,
Yeah.
there's as it usually does. It's always painful to talk about Transnet because you're just like every third month we're talking about
Transnet.
We're talking about Transnet. We're talking about what's happening with the leadership.
Yeah.
There's just a lot that goes in there.
It's a lot, mate. And with those other companies that you mentioned, particularly the commodity companies,
Yeah.
What has happened here will not only affect the state, will affect those companies as well. So
Yes.
you, individual shareholder, you investor, you're affected by this. So we have a change in leadership. The chief executive of Transnet, the entire group.
Yeah.
It's worth mentioning that this is a state-owned enterprise.
Yes.
So the dynamics are a little bit different.
There's
no
a
share
lot
price.
of politics that goes in
Lots
there.
of politics, no share price to speak of. But the far-reaching consequences of their work is So yeah, Miss Portia Derby, she was let go. They pushed her out. That's the first things. And also the chief financial officer as well.
Yes.
She was also let go. But I think she's going to Telkom. So Telkom shareholders. Anyway, that's all.
Yeah.
But I think another one which is quite important, and this happened about 2 days ago from this recording, it was the exodus of Miss Caesar Mzimela. She is the chief executive of Transnet Freight and Rail. That part has been causing the problems. That division.
But I think she came out to say that she's standing still.
Standing still.
Yeah, she's not going anywhere.
Did she say that?
Yeah. When I
Okay.
read the reports, is this when you can
Am I reading
confirm
wrong?
that? Yeah, like I think the CEO, I could be wrong, the CEO of Freight Rail did say that she's staying put. But,
Yeah. No, she's not, mate. So she's leaving. And politically, I'll be honest with you, it doesn't look great, particularly for Transnet, in that we're seeing a mass exodus from black women. I mean, we come from a situation of which we are praising black women in the private sector, and then now going to the public sector where we actually we're doing the opposite of that. It's unfortunate in that Transnet finds itself where it finds itself, in that these drastic decisions now had to be made, but they had to be made.
yeah.
It couldn't continue like this.
I think, it probably is important for us to kind of discuss the importance of Transnet, right?
Yes.
Transnet, it's a very key stakeholder in the South African market.
Yeah.
Right? They've got about 6 divisions.
Yes.
I may have forgotten the names, but they've got the freight rail, they've got the pipeline, they've got the ports, which they've got split into 2. There's like the one that operates and there's one that does the ownership. And then they've got the engineering component. And then the last one, I think, may have forgotten what it is,
The
but
investors will tell us.
but you know how important it is. For example, the pipeline is the one that kind of transport the oil
Yes.
for Sasol's and them. And with regards to that, like in South Africa right now, I think there's just one oil refinery that is left that has not shut down. What government came down, it came with regulations to kind of say it's either you improve and upgrade the facility for the oil to clean it better, or you shut down. And there was a standoff from the oil refineries that, you know, they're saying, you know, pushback, a lot of pushback from the oil refineries to say it's either the government gives us the extension to, because they had put in like a 2024, I think 2023 deadline to kind of upgrade the facility, or government gives us the money to upgrade the facilities, right? And they've backed down. The government backed down in terms of extending the deadline, but they didn't back down and they didn't budge to give this oil refineries the grants that they need. But it becomes an issue because then we look into imports. And that's why the fuel cost has been very significantly high, because now you literally like right into the market, you importing, your cost is going to be very much high. You put the rent depreciation into that, then 100%. You know, there's all of those things. I don't want to delve into how the fuel price is actually calculated in South African context, but you can see the issues that translated to the oil industry, where you're gonna find your Sasol, you're gonna find your what energy, etc. Exactly. So that becomes a problem, right? When Transnet is not working in that space and sphere, then it becomes an issue. And we don't have any oil refineries in South Africa. There's only one that is on the brink of actually shutting down as well.
My God.
So you can imagine the issues that we're gonna get. Then we probably gonna end up paying for petrol for 30 rand a liter. And
so some cool context. In Africa, later on this year, there's gonna be 2 oil refineries when Dangote's refinery goes live. But that's I'm just painting the context of the importance of the work of Transnet. We hop on about it. I think Transnet has to be the company that we speak about most.
Yeah.
But it's important.
It's very much important.
And it's not even just from a shareholder point of view, right? It touches all the way down to the regular person on the streets in the form of inflation.
Yes.
And that's why it's important. We can't hop on enough about getting Transnet right. And if it means having a change in the board, it means changing managers, it means doing things which are politically unpalatable, like such as this. The past 2 weeks have been quite difficult politically for Transnet, rightly so. But they had to be made.
Exactly. It's unfortunate. Like, the ports are not managed, they're not maintained, they're on all of that. So you can't really ship to export, right? So that's why companies like Anglo-Plat, that is on our portfolio, it's facing challenges, because if Transnet is not going to invest in maintaining the ports, it means that it's either Anglo-Plat export less or doesn't export at all. I did mention the figure that I think it was 3 billion that Transnet is actually costing the
South
mining
economy.
Yeah.
Oh, was it just the mining?
The mining specifically. So you can imagine. I mean, if it's costing the mining, it's costing the South African economy. So that's really bad, you know. And even their rail, right? Because the rail is to actually transport in the region, to transport the products from the mining all the way down, right? So that means now it becomes an issue, right? That it's affecting the supply chain of all those different companies. So, and because of the issues on the supply chain, right? Then it filters down to food.
It does.
The food prices have gone very much up ever since then. Then it filters down to the clothing, filters down to the cost of building, it filters down to the cost of making anything, right? And that's the problem.
What's the Reserve Bank going to do?
And then the Reserve Bank comes in to say, we're going to raise the interest rate.
What are they going to do?
And then you're like, but that is not a demand issue. it's not a spending issue.
Yeah.
It's a supply issue.
Yeah.
The problem are coming all the way from the supply issues
Yeah.
that are happening
No,
and
right,
interruptions that are
I
happening.
agree. No, I
you know.
agree. I agree completely. I think you and I share the same sentiment when it comes to this. So sorry if you get bored. We talk about Transnet all the time, but it's very important. Investors.
It's a very important stakeholder that affects
Ew.
pretty much a whole lot of things that goes in there.
I was saying, I put it on my WhatsApp status in that. Okay, the biggest systemic risk to the South African economy is ESCOM, right? But Transnet is working. It's trying its best to become number one. They are trying their hardest. I was
To become one of the biggest.
like, listen, we can do. Hold my beer, ESCOM. That type of jazz. But yeah, mate.
It's quite sad, man. Like I get so pissed when I talk about those things because one, I pay my taxes.
Yeah.
Like I pay my taxes. And you know when you're doing that tax return and
Yeah.
you look at the amount of tax you've paid, you're just like,
Yeah.
but for what?
For what?
Like for what?
Exactly.
When state-owned entities, they're coming, yeah, no, we're reducing the number of ghost employees. I'm like, but why is there ghost employees in the first place?
Bro. Like we're reducing. What do you mean?
What do you mean you're reducing? You know, like, no, we've worked to recover. I'm like, I don't want recovery. I want proactive
Yeah.
action to actually prevent those things from happening.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
but unfortunately, when you're talking about things where politics is involved,
Yeah.
there's always gonna be things like this.
Mate, I would just like I want to just pump your brakes a little bit.
Yeah.
The midterm budget is coming up. We are going to speak about this in detail at the
Exactly.
midterm budget.
Exactly.
For that episode.
So there's gonna be
yeah.
a whole lot of things that is happening. But that's when I talk about Transnet, I really get angry.
Yeah, me too.
I really get angry because this is a state and entities that have my money is there.
Yeah.
Involuntary.
Yeah.
You know, there's nothing I can do about it. But that's kind of the link between Transnet and what's happening in the mining sector and what actually end up happening in the food, whatever.
Yeah.
Like there's a comment that the Reserve Bank governor Lesego Khanyago said, and he said,
Lesitja.
Lesitja.
Yeah.
He said, mate,
What do you say?
I was like, come on, man. Clear, like, what happened? Who prepared this? Like, who's your PR manager
What
for
did he
doing
say?
that? The man came out and said, the high interest rate or the hiking of interest rate does not affect the poor because nobody's lending to them. I'm like, that's such an ignorant statement to say.
No, mate. Like okay, but I think I know where the Reserve Bank comes from.
But at the end of the day, right? Let's think about it this way. When you have high interest rate, South African consumer, right, has a debt to income average of 86% to 90%.
Okay.
If we have a debt to income level of 86 to 90%, who are those people borrowing money from? Okay, fine, let's park that.
Okay.
2, if you're going to say that interest rate does not affect the poor person, right? But you're only thinking about it from, I must have this product. But remember, the mere fact that you're increasing interest, it means that it denies me the access to the loan. And that in itself is a problem. It affects me. It means that the poor person gets worse and worse every day by not gaining access because the affordability or unaffordability increases and increases as and when interest rate increases.
I hear you. I think where they were coming from. I don't know where they. I didn't hear the speech. I'm not sure where. But my understanding of the South African Reserve Bank is that they've paid closer attention to central bank communication. In fact, I think the South African Reserve Bank, when it comes to communicating stuff as to how it filters down compared to other central banks, it actually leads in my view. I think that this comes from that debate on the role of how price stability should actually be maintained by the South African Reserve Bank. So some people are saying that interest rates, it's a bit too harsh. It's a bit too harsh on who? And that's the question I think that they were asking. So they're saying that the interest rate, changing or hiking interest rate, it's always when it's hiking, it's never when it's loosening. But anyway, when you're hiking, this is too harsh. It's affecting the middle class and it's affecting the rich. That's the general narrative.
Which I fundamentally disagree with that.
And you can
Yeah.
and you can disagree with it, but that's the narrative out there, and I think that's what the communication was dealing with. It was dealing with that narrative of saying that out of the toolkit that we as a South African Reserve Bank have, in order to maintain price stability in a way that does not leave everybody across the board worse off, is interest rates. Now, when it comes to the poor, again, I agree with you what you're saying fundamentally, né? But I think where they were coming from was that with the poor, the people that actually own these financial instruments are the people that are going to be immediately hit with the hiking of the rates. Like for us, our home loans immediately, our car loans immediately, if they are linked to the prime rate or to the repo rate. So
Yeah.
I think that's where they were coming from. And not necessarily that it was a blanket statement saying that this is it. But I think it was in the interest of sharpening central bank communication. I think that's what they were trying to say.
Yeah, look, I think the idea for me is the statement to say that the poor are not affected by the interest hikes, it's fundamentally flawed.
When you say, okay, like, did you say not affected?
Yeah,
affected less.
No, he said they are not affected. I'll send you a clip.
Okay.
I think we can even ask Matthew to actually put it up down here to see what the Reserve Bank governor said. He said, these are his words: the poor are not affected by the interest hikes because nobody is lending to them. I'm like, that's a very narrow view of what the poor gets affected by, more especially by the person that has the most important function of the economy of South Africa. You know?
Yeah. No, I hear you, mate.
Because the interest rate does, when borrowing costs increase for Capitec, I mean, when the borrowing costs increase for the most basic thing, ShopRite, what do? They increase their price to cover the borrowing costs. And that affect the bread that is going to be someone from Limpopo, Konko, Anko, or somewhere is going to buy.
Or Malachi, where he's from. But like, no, mate, I really think, a blanket thing, a hard and fast statement such as not affected, is not something that he would mean just out of like that.
Yeah, but I will show you what he did.
No.
That's actually what he said. It was
Interesting.
not like, no, the poor are less affected. No, it was the poor gets.
I'm convinced that's not what he meant. I'm super convinced that's not what he meant.
Guys, investors, please, you must see the video right here. That's what the governor said. He said that the poor are not affected because there's nobody borrowing to them. And I was personally offended by that statement.
Okay, no, mate. Like, your offense, I'm not gonna question your offense. I'm just looking at the character of this guy, whom I've had the privilege to interact with. He's a public servant, and he's a champion for the poor. In my view. But I think like what he said there, I think it's not a hard and fast bang. It does not affect the poor because the poor don't get.
But when you put it like that, because he believes that when you're not borrowing, this is borrowing costs. And I'm telling him, or I'm sure he even knows this, that the borrowing costs don't just stick there and say this is the borrowing cost. They affect other things.
Yeah.
It's a financing to something.
Nah, mate,
I
hear you.
And
I'm keen to see this thing. It'll be very, very interesting. This guy is.
We must even show it down somewhere.
He's a public servant. This guy.
Like, I was offended by that, and for me, you like him. I don't. I don't.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of the guy.
Yeah.
Probably because I don't think that they kind of have I don't think they have a proper grasp of what's actually happening, what's pushing the inflation. I don't think they have a proper grasp on that.
Mate.
They are so focused on managing the inflation. That's my view. They're focused on managing the inflation and forgetting that there's two parts to it. That, I mean, he probably does have a degree in economics. I'm not questioning.
But like managing inflation is a mandate.
Yeah,
from the Constitution.
But I'm saying that.
So you can't say that they're too much focused on. They should be focusing on the inflation.
But I'm saying that even managing the inflation, you must understand what's driving the inflation.
Yes.
Yeah. So.
And you say that they don't.
I'm saying they don't understand what's driving the inflation.
Okay.
Because it's a supply side. It's not a demand side. More especially in this context that we're in.
Yeah.
Right? Which I believe that many analysts even agree with me that this high inflation environment that we're in, it is not a demand inflation. It's not driven by the spending. If anything, consumers are actually being squeezed.
Yes.
Because this is a supply issue.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, then we must ask ourselves, then, is interest hiking the right instrument or the right channel in this environment to actually cap that inflation?
Mate, I think we're gonna have one. I think the MPC is having their last meeting in November. We're definitely gonna revisit this. We should revisit this, and as well as combining it with the midterm budget.
With the midterm budget,
it's gonna be interesting. But yeah, no, I think I'm going to end off there.
Yeah.
But just the little that I know about him is that he's a champion for the poor. He's a public servant all of his life.
Yeah, he's a fan. I'm not, clearly. But I think, as always, man, very good discussion and very good, passionate points being put across.
Yo, oh my gosh! No, this was good fun, man.
But other than that, maybe going to football. Who taking, Sundowns or Pirates?
Sundowns. It's been Sundowns for the past 6 years. It's going to be Sundowns for the foreseeable future. There's nothing.
But Pirates has won this cup in the last 2 seasons consecutively.
No, but I'm just saying, like, if you analyze it just from the football, from if you put player to put where they are.
I know Sundowns has depth, right? That's
better players.
There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, there's no. I don't think, like, okay. So we look at ceiling as well. Well, that's what I do whenever I look at sports. I look at if people play their best, where are they compared to another team that plays their best? Where are they? And if you look at if you compare the ceilings of both sides, you can't compare the ceilings of both sides. I think Sundowns will have to play badly, and Pirates will have to play well.
Okay,
you get what I'm saying?
Okay,
but like, yeah, Sundowns. But again, maybe I'm a bit biased. I do appreciate Sundowns locally. But yeah,
okay,
yeah.
cool.
So Sundowns, and then the Springboks all the way. Those are my guys.
Okay. It will be interesting. I think we might do an Instagram live, and I'm gonna be hammering this guy because Pirates is going to win today. I know that for sure.
Oh my gosh!
But nonetheless, investors, great for sticking around and listening to us. And please do ask questions, like, subscribe, and comment. And from Nico and I, have a good one.